Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a book versus movie review. I feel like I haven't done one of these in ages, but recently I have been doing reading vlogs for the Howl's Moving Castle books by Diana Wynne-Jones, and I've watched the movie adaptation of it many a time, so I thought this is a perfect time to do another one of these videos. So yeah, it is for Howl's Moving Castle. So I'm going to start off with the book review, and then I'll go into the movie review, and then I'll start talking about some more spoilery discussions and kind of get into the nitty-gritty differences and similarities, that sort of thing. Try not to take too much of your time, but let's crack on. So for the book, I actually gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It's actually a trilogy, so it has a couple of sequels, but they're kind of like loosely connected to each other, some more than others, and really they're just all kind of set in the same world. So there's Castle in the Air, which is the second sequel, and House of Many Ways, which is another sequel. I will link the reading vlog for the first one, Howl's Moving Castle, in the cards if you're interested. So as I mentioned, I have watched the movie many a times. It's by Studio Ghibli, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. I believe it's one of his ones. It is indeed. I've loved it since I was a kid, so when I realised around 5 or 6 years ago that they were actually, well, a lot of the Studio Ghibli movies were based off of books, I kind of made it my mission to kind of find them and collect some of them, specifically the ones I really loved. And so yeah, obviously get to them and read them, just to kind of check out the source material, see how much it differed, just what it was like as a reading experience. And so yeah, my adventure began. So Howl's Moving Castle, we are following our main character called Sophie. She is the eldest of 3 sisters, and basically all the sisters are sent out to do apprenticeships because the business, which is a hat business, is kind of declining, and her stepmom can't kind of keep them all on together since the dad passed away, and so she sends them all out to kind of still get an education from others and learn new skills, and get wages elsewhere so that she can sort of focus what she needs to pay on rather than worry about everybody else, I guess. However, Sophie attracts the unwelcome attention of the Witch of the Waste. The Witch of the Waste is just so easily offended, and she's jealous. She's just not a very nice character generally. She's kind of fueled by hate, and so whatever reason Sophie seems to have done to offended the Witch of the Waste in her own shop, she is cursed. And she is cursed to basically become an old lady, but she can't tell anyone about the curse unless they already know or they figured it out. She can't speak about the curse, or who cursed her. So I believe that's the right, yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, she travels to the one place where she thinks she'll be able to get some help, and that is Wizard Howl in Howl's Moving Castle. However, there's a lot of scary rumours around that he has a particular appetite for young girls' hearts, but this doesn't deter her because she wants this curse out of the way and, you know, live her life as normal. And also, she's technically old now, so surely he's not going to be interested. But we will see. Sophie as a character, I really enjoy her dry, kind of matter-of-fact approach of life, and just, she does seem kind of, it's interesting, she has this contrast when she's a teenager to when she's an old woman, because as a teenager she does kind of appear just dull, but as a old woman she has this more cynical, amusing way about her. But I also find that with this age comes a newfound wisdom and confidence and boldness even to her personality that I don't think she even dreamed she could have when she was in that teenage mentality. So it's almost like this curse has done something beneficial for her, because those are characteristics that end up having lasting power. I also really enjoyed that in the book version of this we see a lot more input from Sophie's sisters. I'm not even really sure if they're mentioned an awful lot in the movie, but you get to kind of build up these characters a little bit more, and that in turn creates a more solid main cast of characters, because you have all these sort of facets and aspects of their life that make them more of a believable, solid, you know, 3D character as opposed to just a stick drawn 2D thing, you know. The story itself is just so dramatic, and that definitely channels into Howl, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just love how whimsical and witty and just funny this whole story was. Like, it was so endearing and heartwarming and just had me smiling throughout. I also really enjoyed that we have a lot more kind of fractured plot lines than the movie talks about. So there's a lot more going in here and a lot more focusing on other things than I expected there would be. So that was awesome, because I felt like I was getting more story and more time in this world and kind of a better appreciation of the characters. Howl himself, as I mentioned, very fabulous, very dramatic. Oh my god, I think reading this, I've always thought he was a favourite character of mine anyway, but I feel like reading this has solidified that notion, because he is just so intense and I'm here for it. I absolutely love it. He's either absolutely ecstatic or absolutely downtrodden. There is no in between, and the way it's written is exceptional. Like, it is so much fun to read, and I feel like it's maybe to an extent, but it is a good characterization of people, because I feel like me, for example, although I'm not this dramatic, I do have those moods where, okay, I don't have like a diagnosed issue with this, but I do feel either very, very happy or gravely depressed. Like, it's rarely that I am, and I don't use depressed lightly, like I'm actually on like antidepressants, but what I mean is it's rarely that I'm ever on kind of like a neutral wavelength, and I like that I could connect with Howl. Even though I was laughing along and it was comical, I liked that I could connect with that character because of those. And you know, although again it was like a funny aspect, it was part of his personality, and that was okay, you know. Oh well, I didn't mean to go that deep, but it happened. I adored the writing style of this. It felt kind of like the older tier of middle grade. It was delivered, I feel like, in a more eloquent, mature way, but it still felt like a fun adventure fantasy story that would be targeted at that age group. There's also some really beautiful chapter headings in this one that I very much enjoyed. I don't think there were chapter headings in the third book, which is sad, but I liked it in this. So yeah, the novelisation of this I gave a 5 stars. So in terms of the movie, we pretty much follow a very similar plot point, but as I mentioned in the book review portion of this video, it actually focuses on a different plot to an extent, or it takes inspiration from a different plot and kind of runs more with that to become its own thing. So the movie, as I say, I watched many times. I gave it 4 stars this time round, I think, just in reflection of having read the book and having more content there. I dipped it a bit, because I think every time I've watched this in my head, naturally it's just been a 5 star, but as I say, having more content and context from the novel, this almost felt a little bit lacking in some ways, but also at the same time felt like its own thing. Let me explain. There is definitely a different interpretation of this. I feel like the threat from the Witch of the Waste war is something that is very much the forefront of this storyline. The Witch of the Waste is definitely a character that, you know, has a big part in the novel, because it's the whole reason that Sophie's cursed, but she's definitely more of a prominent character, like not necessarily a main character, but more kind of on screen a lot more, you know, than how she was on the pages. And also this war, like, I think I'll probably talk a bit more spoilers in a second, but that wasn't, I don't even think a war really was mentioned in Howl's Moving Castle book, so that was interesting, noticing those differences, that really it is quite a different storyline altogether. I think I would definitely say this is a very enjoyable film. It's just as whimsical and kooky as I remember, but I definitely noticed quite a lot of differences when, you know, comparing the two now, having the knowledge of what I do from the book. But yeah, I love the animation in this. The art style is absolutely beautiful. I think one of my favourite things is kind of the blend of the very, like, well, it's not even that anime-esque, but that sort of more traditional anime design for the characters kind of layered on top of these very almost realistic scenery backdrops. I think that that's such a blend. It doesn't look jarring or anything, it just kind of melts together beautifully. So yes, the movie version of Howl's Moving Castle I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Okay guys, so those are my general thoughts on the book and the movie. If you want to end here because you don't want any spoilers, then feel free to click out, and thank you very much for watching. However, if you have watched, read, or both of these, that sounded really weird, that was a strange way of making that sentence, then carry on, because this next section is going to be very spoilery, and I'm going to kind of pick apart some things that maybe worked, didn't work, were different, that I noticed and couldn't not notice, you know. So yes, if you stay along now, I'm going to assume you don't mind spoilers. So one of the main things that I found really interesting about the differences between the book and the movie is that in the movie, the black knob facing down in Howl's moving castle goes to this war scene, and that's strange because it's a complete different concept to how the book did it. So in the book, it doesn't lead to this epic battle that the Queen had enlisted Howl to fight in. It actually came to unearth Howl's origins and where he was originally from, and a little bit more about him as a being. That sounds a bit more magical than I intended it to be, but basically that door leads to Howl's home place, home country in Wales, which in the world of Ingrid is a different world, so it's, you know, that definite bit of portal magic, but it seems much more normal. I don't want to say underwhelming and anticlimactic, but definitely a much more normal concept than the extravagant war and flights and all these sort of things that you like, flying bird Howl that you see in the movie. But I did really like how to the characters of Ingrid, Wales seemed like this strange magicless place to these characters, and they were even more intrigued because it was so different to what they had known. But yeah, I was very shocked. That is definitely something that the movie didn't discuss about Howl being from Wales. Like, that just wasn't a thing in the movie. It was kind of just presumed that this was the world, and you know, this was the world that Howl was from, magical one as all the other characters, and that was just it. It wasn't really discussed. There wasn't any kind of hint as to, is he other? Like, it was just, this is the world of Ingrid, you know. Yeah, there wasn't so much as a hint that there was more depth to this sort of portal magic, that it was actually like dimensional, I guess. That's enough of that though. I guess maybe the war concept of the movie might be akin to our world's war, with the planes and the bombs and stuff. That did seem very like our real life war, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I was always a bit miffed by that storyline anyway. Like, it seemed kind of like random, I guess. But yeah, now I'm even more confused because it definitely wasn't really the same at all in the book. I also found it a bit strange that in the movie we often have like these characters just smushed together to create one character, or kind of a different interpretation of these characters but in a combined being, which is very odd. For example, the missing wizard Solomon, I think he was called, or Sullivan, was turned into Madam Solomon. And also in the movie version, she was the teacher of Howl and not Mrs. Pestamon. I can never say this. Penstemon in the book. I guess in a way it saves time for a movie, and it's just more convenient. I guess it takes away any confusion of trying to remember all these different characters, any other complexity that a book you have time and you can dip in and out and do that with, whereas in a movie you've only got like an hour and a half, 2 hours to kind of capture your audience and give them the plot, give them something exciting, rather than sitting through and having to work it out because you might lose your target audience that way. And I guess as well, it's also just a convenient way to have some sort of connections, again, whilst moving the story forward rather quickly. However, in doing this, I know they cut out some information that might have been a bit mind-boggling and too much for, you know, the short length of a movie, but I still feel like they missed out important information that would have made the plot's direction make more sense, you know. I also did find myself picking more holes in the plot of the movie, having after read the novel, but I must say the movie itself definitely still holds a special place in my heart. Again, absolutely adore the art in here. I've already spoken a bit about that, and I like that it kind of is its own entity. Like, it's taken some of the main ideas and concepts of Diana Wynne Jones's novel, it's really sort of made its own thing from it. For example, you know, the concept of the war, although I feel like there was mention of a war distantly in book 2, and also choosing not to have a door that goes to like Wales, like a normal portal door that was supposed to be like quotations. I think overall I enjoyed both the book and movie on like similar levels, but I do feel like they're different stories, and as you can see from my rating, the book now definitely gets that 1 star more, just because there was much more in it than I was expecting. You know, a different storyline, more focus on characters that don't really get a look in the movie, same with context of plot points and things like that. Overall they are both very enjoyable, would totally recommend both of them. And yeah, that wraps up this very rambly review. Let me know if you've read or watched Howl's Moving Castle or both, and also drop your favourite Studio Ghibli movie in the comments. I would love to know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you in another video soon. Bye.